Hey everybody, welcome to Landscape Rescue. And on this episode, we're going to be doing some shopping at Lowe's. Not necessarily specifically for clearance stuff, but we always are looking for good deals, right? So one of the things that I ran into is I have a Thornless Blackberry that I got given to me. And it is doing fantastic. We ate blackberries. I felt like up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had kind of eaten all the blackberries. So I'm kind of in the market for another blackberry. I would like to have another one. Now this one that I have has gotten absolutely enormous. It's huge. So if anybody's going to do a blackberry, probably a better system than what I've developed. And when I say developed, I was unprepared for how well this blackberry was going to do. I mean, I planted it as a little sprig. It grew in last year, relatively easy to control. This year, the thing has like 14 or 15 foot long runs, stems, and it just doesn't have one of those. It has maybe 8 or 9 of those. So training it like in an espalier sense across my fence is probably not going to work. Once I cut down the sunflowers, then I'm going to like just try to figure out what it is. So I wanted another blackberry to where it could cross-pollinate, right? Not that it's a necessity because I had berries this year. I saw this blackberry here and it says C-A-D-D-O. However in the world you pronounce that, I'm not gonna try. It makes me feel dumb every time I do it, so I'm just gonna stop doing it. I don't do things that make me feel dumb. I do things that make me look dumb because it makes you guys laugh. That's the difference. Thornless Blackberry. Okay, so I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna pronounce it. So a thornless blackberry. I'm gonna zoom in so you guys can see this. Does that look thornless to anybody? Is anybody thinking that's thornless? So maybe I'm crazy, but the word thornless, just maybe it's lost its impact in society today. Back when I was a kid, when something said thornless, it didn't have any thorns. So anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. Not that I'm not gonna purchase it because it has thorns. I was thinking though, instead of getting another blackberry, maybe I get a raspberry because they do have some raspberries over here too. And I think that'd be fun. It's kind of fun as a family to just go outside and pick some raspberries. I found that I was doing it a lot more than my kid. I thought he'd really get into it. And you gotta be careful about when you pull them. I like to just kind of give them a little tap, and if they fall into my hand, then they're ready. They were a little bitter when we first started. We had to learn that lesson. We had to learn the valuable lesson of letting them fall into your hand versus pulling and twisting them off. Because those give you like a sweet tart. They'd nail you. But here's some raspberries. So I thought that might be kind of cool, but I've got to develop a system that's gonna work. And you know me, if I'm gonna do something, I'm not just gonna get a blackberry. I'm gonna get a blackberry and a raspberry and then fight the monstrosity that I've got in my yard already. Decisions. Here's the thing, it's not about growing stuff. We're good at growing things. We can grow stuff all day long. It's maintenance, right? It's maintaining the stuff that we're growing. That's what I worry about. Okay, enough of that silliness. Let's go inside and see if we can find some really good deals for our pay it forward bed. Hey, check this out. Remember these orange you awesomes that we planted? Those are pretty cool. And then these sombrero sangrias, remember we planted some of these over at Affinity Estates. Man, these are cool. These are the Adobe Orange from that Sombrero series. So I learned something really cool. So I work at a wholesale nursery. I'm in charge of ordering plants. I'm the department manager for that nursery. And I was talking to somebody from Monrovia, and she was talking about, so these Monrovia plants that are sold in the big box stores like Lowe's aren't necessarily grown by Monrovia. They're grown by a grower you know, Monrovia put some guidelines in place. They use the inoculated soil. They do everything how Monrovia says to do it, but the pots are a little thinner. She said that's kind of how you can tell if it's a Monrovia grower or not, is the pot will be, I guess, a little cheaper. What I should say is the pot is just going to be a lower quality pot. So the plastic is thinner, but it's still grown to the same standards. It's just not grown by a Monrovia nursery. It's grown by a Monrovia affiliate nursery. Denim and lace. One of you guys put a comment that you got some denim and lace. Man, what am I smelling? I'm smelling something. It's probably all these mums around here. But anyway, I wanted to show you the cool Echinacea. Okay, everybody, so I wanted to give you just a kind of synopsis of Weigela. I know we've talked about Weigela a bunch. Now this is Sonic Bloom. That's what we're looking at right now. It's got a beautiful pink flower, just the regular green foliage. It's got its place. Weigela has its place. But one of our subscribers and one of the people that's in our Facebook group, and I say our as a collective community, our Facebook group, was talking about he picked up some Weigela, and I gave him some tips. Make sure you trim it, make sure you feed it. Now the 2-year fertilizer tablets are going to help you a lot in remembering to do that, because you don't have to remember but every 2 years, right? When you're trimming these, you don't, when I say trim, I don't necessarily mean just go in with hedge trimmers and just knock it down 1.5 feet, which is usually what I do, especially in a nursery setting, because I don't have time to just really dote on stuff. I need to trim it back. I need it to flush new growth, which is prettier, doesn't have brown leaves on it, it hasn't dried out, you know, things like that. New leaves are attractive. And what follows new growth is usually blooms, especially on the Weigela. So I like to trim them. But take your pruners, and you don't necessarily, see this long stem here, you don't necessarily have to buzz it. I can come in and I can trim this just right down to that next stem, right? That next. So when we're looking at where the next buds are going to come in, see that little guy right there? Right? So that's where the new stems are going to come out, and we're going to get 2. We're going to get 1 on each side. You can go through and you can just make a couple little cuts, right? You don't have to just round the whole thing off. I like to do that, but it's for speed. If I want a little less of a contrived look, right? So a little less planned, I would go in there and I would just cut in different different levels, so I get new growth and I get that thickness that I want, right? It looks a little bit more wispy and fun. The acid sweat. So Weigela, I'm not gonna bust anybody's chops about Weigela. I love Weigela, but it is kind of more maintenance intensive because you want to trim it. Okay, let's continue looking around. Okay, once again, Lowe's is showing up to the party and showing every other place that sells plants how to do it. What kind of crabapple it is? It looks just like, kind of like just a red crabapple. It's very non-descriptive. So, Malus floribunda rubra, which is just basically saying crabapple with lots of flowers that are red. I mean, that's what the botanical name's telling us. And gets 25 feet tall. So I would say this would be very similar to a prairie fire crabapple. So look how pretty and healthy this thing is. It's $29. Can you see that? This guy right here, $29. I mean, it's an $80 tree. And they have, you could do an entire privacy screen with something like this at basically $30 a piece. Get your beneficial bacteria, get your beneficial fungus, get your 2-year fertilizer tablets, and now you're sitting at probably $31. Yeah, put them on 20-foot centers so they get to grow in, and just have an entire line of beautiful red and pink flowering crabapples that don't actually drop crabapples. That's cool. Here's another one. 5-gallon dogwoods. Now dogwoods typically don't grow super fast like say a red maple, but if you're looking for dogwoods, if you've got even a wood line, probably would want to put a little makeshift fence or something around this for the deer this winter, because they kind of get dogwoods in our area, but we've got a lot of native dogwoods. If you had a wood line that got morning sun shielded from the hot afternoon for $35, there's 2 here, right? So you're walking out of here at $70 plus tax, and you're getting 2 dogwoods out of the deal. That is, dang it, that's a really good deal. Here's a forest pansy redbud. See that purple that's kind of the telltale sign that this is a forest pansy, that purple heart-shaped leaf. $35. Wow, the combination of those two, that's a pretty combo. There's a time here in the Ozarks when the dogwoods and the crabapples, depending on the variety of crabapple, of course, and the redbuds are all blooming at the same time. It's breathtaking. It's almost like I want to set it up to where that's what my woodline looks like in the spring. Just a common weeping willow, $29. And these things will grow like they're on fire, but what I always tell people about weeping willows is you've got to go out there in the morning, do the 5-gallon bucket thing, do the gator bag thing, and make sure you're giving that thing, at least that first year, make sure you're watering it every day. A slow trickling water, because they like the agua. A ginkgo, $33 for a ginkgo. Now, your grandkids, before they move on to the next world, might see this thing grow. They're very slow growing. They're not considered mature until they're 100 years old. But look at that leaf. It doesn't even look real. And some of the prettiest yellow fall color that you can possibly imagine. Ginkgos. So pretty. Oh, Coosa dogwood. So the Coosa dogwood is the dirty bloomer. It's the one that blooms with the leaves on. And it's not actually technically a flower, it's a bracket, which is just a modified leaf. Coosa can handle a little bit more sun, but I still treat them like a regular dogwood. I want them out of the sun by 12-ish. But with a Coosa, maybe you could dip a little bit more into the afternoon sun, but you want to give them a break. Give them a break, let them relax a little bit. And they've got 1, 2, 3 of these Coosas. $50. $50, and that has got to be 7-gallon? 7-gallon. Huh. Economy of scale. I don't know how they're making any money doing this. Because maybe they got some poor 20-something out here watering. They don't even have a set up an irrigation system, so I don't know. Maybe their overhead is low. Okay, let's keep looking around. But man, those trees were a really good deal. Okay, I wanted to kind of run over some grasses real quick. This is a maiden grass, but it's bandwidth maiden grass. So Miscanthus sinensis versus like Miscanthus gracilimus, which would be like the maiden grass that we typically see on the side of the house. But I really like bandwidth for the purpose of it's thick. It doesn't seem to lay down, but it only gets 3 feet tall. So you can bring that contrast and texture, and you can bring in winter interest. A lot of people forget about grass when it comes to winter interest because this doesn't go anywhere. It dries and then it just kind of blows around in the wind, just like panicle hydrangeas. Now, and it's not going to overtake your space. It's not going to get 6 foot tall, or if it's pampas grass, 14 foot tall plumes. You don't really have to deal with that. Another one is dwarf hamlin grass. So see this here. This gets, so it's a pennisetum, and it's going to get about 3 feet tall also, with really attractive plumes on them. They do very well. They look pretty. I feel like if you trim your grass, I leave my grasses up all winter long. Specifically, well, I do it for two purposes. One, I want the winter interest, right? Because I don't have any evergreens because they're boring.
Oh no, he didn't.
I like grass. I think sometimes designers forget about all the senses that you want to appeal to when you're designing a flower bed, one of which is sound. What does it sound like? And grasses, when the wind blows through grass, you hear it. And it's a very cool sound. Now, contrary to the bandwidth, you have porcupine grass, maybe zebra grass, which is going to get significantly larger. So don't get these two mixed up. Yes, 8 feet high by 6 feet wide. 8 feet high by 6 feet wide. So look at the combination. Look at these two. 8 foot tall, 3 feet tall. So see how it'd be easy to make that mistake? Will overpower your space, will add some sound and varying textures and color contrast to your space. Because where do you get horizontal lines in things typically? You typically don't, right? They're vertical lines. It's usually where your variegation goes. So our eyes, when we see something like this, our eyes immediately go to it because that's something we're not used to. Humans pick up patterns very well. And that is definitely a unique pattern that we don't see very often. So don't get those two mixed up, and you'll be fine. Now, if you're trying to do kind of seasonal privacy, like around a pool, I really like to use these for that because they give kind of a tropical feel. We don't need evergreens around our pool because we don't swim in the wintertime. We need evergreens around our hot tubs, right? Oh, hey, here, let's talk about Karl Forster grass. Karl Forster is another one of those Karl Forster feather reed grass. The grass itself doesn't get very tall, and I feel, but it says average to mature size 5 to 5 by 5. Think about the plume as where it's going to get its height. So when it sends its flower, its grass's flower, where it's going to produce its seed head, is going to shoot up 5 feet. But for a grass, it lends itself very well to a more formal landscape because it's very well kept. Does that make sense? Its natural growth habit is kind of straight up and down when it blooms. It's hard to explain, but Karl Forster has got that feel to me. So if I'm doing a modern, well, I don't do that sort of stuff anymore, but if I was designing a more modern landscape, Karl Forster will definitely be involved because it has that very stately appearance for a grass. Okay. So I was just shooting the bull with one of the employees here at Lowe's, and she was nice enough to point this out. I was talking about the hibiscus and how much success I'm having with them at my house, and she had pointed out this, and I think this is such a unique color bloom that I'm very, very tempted to pay full price just so I can plant this sooner than later. It's almost like, I'm trying to describe, a grayish purple with that pink throat, and then it gets to a darker, like a raspberry colored throat. And this is called Summer Spice Blue Brulee Hardy Hibiscus. And it is the winner of 2 Medals of Excellence. Well done. Look at all these hibiscus. Look at all these hardy hibiscus. And there's some more right over here. This is passion in that Head Over Heels series. So it's a very light pink. Very light pink bloom. And it's got a lot of, they have just a lot of blooms. And they only last a day, but very pretty. I feel like you guys might have to organize an intervention when it comes to hardy hibiscus, because I am really into them this year. Here's some adores. Adore Head Over Heels. 0 blooms on these. So we can't do a compare and contrast. Shucks. It says Groovy Grape. Boudelia. Butterfly bush. Groovy Grape butterfly bush. 8 feet tall. Sorry. It's not gonna work in my landscaping. But they are pretty. Not when there's things like Pugster Blues out there. Hey everybody, I wanted to apologize. I'm gonna have to cut the video short. I was going to come back to the house and plant some Lowe's plants for you guys, but unfortunately, it's starting to storm. So I'm just gonna have to sign off. I really didn't find a whole lot at that Lowe's. I mean, I found a lot of stuff that I wanted to take home. I did find a ton of stuff on this trip that I wanted to take home with me. Unfortunately, none of it was a good enough deal. I really wanted to bring some blackberries home. I really wanted to bring a raspberry home. For budgetary restraints, I can't really do that. So I look at, if I'm gonna drop $60 worth of plants, it needs to look like that was $60 worth of plants, not 3. The hunt sometimes is just as much fun, is the hunt and going to a couple Lowe's and really finding just a crazy deal and digging your heels in and not filling the space until you really have a good haul. And that's what we did here. My name's Stuart Moore. Thank you for shopping with me at Lowe's today. And thank you for letting me into your home to talk about plants.